Hey everybody, I'm Paul, the SAT Math coach, and this is my very first video. And what I wanted to do for the first time is actually take you through a Bluebook practice test. And this won't be just any practice test. This is going to be the PSAT NMSQT, National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test. There are 2 tests available for you guys to take. I'm going to do the first one. I'm going to advise that you pause the video at every question. Then I'll do it out, and I'm going to do it as a teacher would. I've been teaching for 22 years. If there's a chance I can use Desmos, I definitely show you. I don't know how involved I'll get, as there's a lot more to Desmos than you can imagine. But without further ado, let's get into it. All right, question number 1. What is the x-intercept of the graph shown? So if you're looking at this graph, this looks like a parabola. Now again, this is PSAT. Some of you guys that are going to be taking this are just starting Algebra 2, so you'll learn more about parabolas and quadratics as you go through the year. But basically what I want to know here is, what is the spot, or at what point does my graph hit the x-axis? So looking at that, okay, you're looking at 4 choices. They all have a 0. So obviously we're just going to kind of look at this, see that it's 4. We're going to go with choice D as our answer. Question 2, if x equals 40, what is the value of x plus 6? Very simple equation, or expression I should say. And basically what you're looking at is to plug in 40 for the value of x and just evaluate that. I don't think you need the calculator for this. I would hope that everybody can just do a simple 40 plus x, 40 plus 6, and that gets you 46 for an answer. Choice C is my answer. Question 3. There are a total of 840 seats in a school auditorium. During an assembly, students occupied 50% of the seats in the auditorium. How many seats did the students occupy during this assembly? So this is just a simple percentage question. You're looking at taking 50% of the seats in the auditorium, and there are 840 seats in the auditorium. So again, I think this is something that you probably could do in your head. 50% of something is half of something. So you're looking at, half of 840, which is 420. You would take 50% of 840, okay, which is also equal to 420. For those of you that are, love that is over of equals percent over 100, the proportion, we can do that here. All right. We know that the of is going to be 840. We are looking for the is, and we're going to have 50% up here. Realize that in Desmos, as soon as you put 50%, it will actually automatically put the word oven. So you can just do that. 420 is my answer. I'm going to go with C. Let's continue. Question number 4. Which expression is equivalent to 50x squared plus 5x squared? So a lot of the times on the PSAT, SAT, you're going to get what we call equivalent expressions. The key phrase obviously is which expression is equivalent. And in this case, what you're doing here is, this is a combining like terms question, guys. So this is more of like an Algebra 1 question. Terms are going to be same variable, same exponent. Now, if you have like terms, whether you're adding or subtracting, the key is you're working with the coefficient. So I have a coefficient of a 50, and then I have a coefficient of a 5. So we're going to simply add 50 and 5. We're going to let the variable just come along for the ride. So that's going to be 55x squared. That'll be my answer, choice D. Not going to need Desmos for anything here. One thing you could do in Desmos that doesn't hurt if you have extra time and you want to go back and check your answers later on. If you type in the expression and you get 50x squared plus 5x squared, and you can see that if I were to enlarge this, you'll get kind of a parabola. If we were to type in 55x squared, which by the way, again, we're doing shift 6 for that, you'll see that the blue parabola fits right on top of the red. So if you just deselect the blue, it'll go right on top of the red, or the red will show rather. So you know that's a perfect fit, and you know that visually, graphically, that's correct. And then obviously algebraically, just adding those like terms, that would be correct as well. Question number 5. Which of the following lists represents a data set that has the same median as the data set shown? Okay, so first things first. There's a little handy formula that's used for the position in the data set that the median is. So what I would say is this: the median itself is not equal to n plus 1 over 2. It's the position in the data set when organized from least to greatest, of course, which you can see in the problem it already is. All right, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, numbers here. So 7 plus 1 is going to be 8. 8 over 2 is going to be 4. The fourth number in the data set is going to be my median, which in this case is 8. So what we want to do is we want to look and see which of these also gives me a median of 8. So what we could do is we can use that same rationale. We can do n plus 1 over 2 for each of the choices to see which one gives me a median that would be equivalent to 8. So if I were to look at the first one, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's going to be 7. 6 plus 1 is 7. 7 over 2 is going to be 3.5. So that means that the third and the fourth number averaged out will be my median. So that's going to be 6 and 6. So if I add 6 and 6, I'm going to get 12. Divided by 2, I still get 6. So this guy is not one of my choices. Here I've got 2, 4, 6. I have 6 data values. So if I add one, that's 7. 7 over 2 again is going to be the 3.5. So the average of the third and the fourth. Third is 8. Fourth is 8. That's an average of 8. So this guy right here will be my answer. That'll be choice B. Now, let's talk about Desmos. What's nice about Desmos is I can double check this again. If I have time in this first module, if you coast through this first module and you have that time to go back and check your answers, what we can do is we can say that capital A if we want, and then we do bracket 6, 6, separated by commas. We're going to form a list here. All right, so we're going to call capital A this list, which is made up of 7 elements. If I do median of parentheses 8, I get I get my median of 8. Okay, so what you could do is, and we know B is the answer, what you could do is you could check this. You could say B is equal to the list being 6, 6, 8, 8, 10, 10. All right, so this is again a 6-element list. And then if we did the median of parentheses B, you'll get that to be 8, which would confirm that our answer is in fact B. Again, anytime I want to clear this, by the way, just hit the cogwheel, the gear icon, and delete all, and we have a fresh expression list on Desmos. On to question 6. A cherry pitting machine pits 12 pounds of cherries in 3 minutes. At this rate, how many minutes does it take the machine to pit 96 pounds of cherries? This is comparing two quantities. Two quantities that get compared is going to be a rate or ratio. So we have a ratio of 12 pounds of cherries that are pit in 3 minutes. Okay? And we want to know at this rate, so if we keep this rate of 12 pounds, 3 minutes, or for every 3 minutes we pit 12 pounds, any way you want to say it, then we want to know how long, in terms of minutes, does it take to pit 96 pounds of cherries. So in any proportion, again, we have a ratio of pounds over minutes. We want the same exact words to be on the same side, or on the other side, I should say. 96 is going to go up at the top, and then we're going to solve for x. So if I cross multiply, I'm going to get 12x is equal to 96 times 3. So let's actually talk a little bit about regression. So some of the things that people are seeing now is regression on Desmos is can solve everything. And Desmos, you have to understand, is not used every single time. The objective is to get it to a point where you can then leverage Desmos. So here I have my proportion. So if I type in 12x is equal to 96 times 3, you will get an answer. All right. The issue is you're going to have to scroll out and find the vertical line, which in this case isn't a big deal, but the answer is 24, 0. So my answer is 24. But instead of having to do the visual approach where I have to zoom out and look for that vertical line, what we can do instead is, and I'll just keep it right here, we can use 12x1. We can't use x and regression. It has to be any variable besides x or y, or you can use subscripts. Now, if you're wondering how I did the subscript, I just do x and then follow it with 1, and it will automatically dump it back down there for a subscript. Now, if I put tilde instead of equals, tilde is the sign that we use for regression. What we want to do here is if we type the same exact thing, take a look at what it gives me. It gives me this RMSE, which if we get 0, that means it's pretty much a perfect fit. More importantly, x1 is given to us in the box. We don't have to scroll or zoom out. We don't have to scroll up or down. Our answer is right there, 24. So we're going to go with that. Our answer is in fact going to be C, 24. Question number 7 is a geometry trigonometry question. In the triangle shown, what is the value of tangent of x degrees? Now, it says note the figure's not drawn to scale. What that means is it's not drawn to the appropriate size, okay? And we can tell that because the side that's 7 and the side that's 26 look pretty much congruent. That couldn't be the case, right? So that's that disclaimer, they're not drawn to scale. So one thing that you have to memorize, you're not going to find this on the formula sheet, which, by the way, at this point, let's just take a quick look. If you scroll up here to reference, you'll get your formulas that, they give you on the, that College Board gives you on the PSAT. But in this case, your knowledge of SOHCAHTOA is what you need, all right? And SOHCAHTOA is going to be the sine of any angle is equal to the side opposite the angle over the hypotenuse. We have the cosine of any angle is equal to the side adjacent to the angle over the hypotenuse. And then finally, we have the tangent of any angle is equal to the side opposite the angle over the side adjacent to the angle, okay? So when you do your, you circle these first letters here, that's what gives us what we all know as SOHCAHTOA, okay? So we are looking for here, guys, tangent of x. So what I do is I circle the angle that we're looking at, and then I want to identify what the 26 is and what the 7 is in regards to that angle. Meaning the 26 is opposite and the 7 is adjacent, okay? So which of those ratios has an O and an A? It's going to be tangent, okay? Which is why it's asking you for tangent. So what we want to do here is simply put the 26, so tangent of x, will be equal to opposite, which is 26, over adjacent, which is 7. That's going to be choice C, and that's my answer. Question 8. The scatter plot shows a relationship between x and y. A line of best fit is also shown. So let's talk about this real quick. Points are actual data values. A line of best fit is going to be representative of estimates. Okay, so a line of best fit, you have to understand, is an estimate. It just kind of like summarizes what the actual points are. So in this case, it's giving us a graph and saying which of the following is closest to the slope of the line of best fit shown. The first thing that I want you to do is understand that any line going up from left to right is going to be a positive slope. And that's something that, I always teach Mr. Slope Guy. Who's Mr. Slope Guy? You have a line going up left to right, indicative of a positive slope. You have a line going down left to right, indicative of a negative slope. A straight vertical line, that's a U standing for undefined, but it looks like a nose. And then we have a straight horizontal line, which is going to be a slope of 0, which kind of represents our dimples. And, you can get creative and whatnot and, get all into it if you'd like. But we're just going to keep it very simple to understand. In this case, with our line going up left to right, we know we have a positive slope. So we can already rule out choice A, and we can rule out choice B. Slope is not given to you. So we would have to say that m is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And that's going to be, let's say, 0.75 minus 1.5 over 1 minus 2. That's going to give me negative 0.75 over negative 1, and you get 0.75. What's closer out of two of those? Obviously, choice C. So that probably is going to be my answer, and I'm pretty confident with that. But let's take a look at how Desmos kind of saves the day with its linear regression. So if I go over here to the left and I go to Desmos, I want you to try typing in table. And whenever I type in table, it immediately brings up a table. Obviously, most of you guys, if you don't, you can hit plus and then hit table that way. I'm a typer. I feel like I can type it faster than actually doing that. But in any event, what I could do here is I could pick any points that I want. So let's say that I'm going to pick now instead, let's use the one tab. Tab is your friend with Desmos. Tab can get you out of a lot of situations. So tab again. I'm going to pick instead, I'm going to go with this point right here. And that point is clearly at 4, 2. Okay? So if I go over here, I'm going to hit tab 2. And now I'm going to hit this button right here, which is add regression. That'll give me a y equals mx plus b. And you can see right there, I am 100% more confident that my answer is 0.44. I mean, I get Desmos to give me 0.416, 0.42 if we round to the nearest hundredth. In any event, you're looking at picking choice C for the answer. Okay, next, question 9. Line K is defined by y equals 1/4 x plus 1. Line J is parallel to line K in the xy plane. What is the slope of J? So let me just move Desmos out of here. And this is going to be our first student-produced response. And I'm not going to read all of this to you, but I'd like you to kind of pause the video and take a good look as to what you can answer, the acceptable ways to answer, because that matters. You do not want to enter something that doesn't work. So, take a look at it on your own time, read it, and don't make that mistake here. So line K, again, you have a y equals mx plus b equation. And, we love when things are in y equals mx plus b. Why do we love it? Because the slope and the y-intercept are handed to us, right, on a silver platter. So you know that this is my m and this is my b. So my slope is 1/4 and my y-intercept, just in case we need to reference it, is 0, 1, okay? So if line K has that information, and then we see that line J is parallel to line K, we just need to know that parallel lines never intersect. Never, ever, ever intersect, because they rise and run at the same rate. Compare it to two cars following each other, right? If you're going 55 miles per hour and the guy behind you is going 55 miles per hour, you should not crash. You should not hit, right? Same thing here. So based on the fact that we know that we have parallel lines, our slope will also be 1/4. So I'm going to type 1/4. Here I could also do 0.25. That would work as well. Question number 10. Which expression is a factor of 2x squared plus 38x plus 10? Okay, question like this. This is a trinomial. This, for those of you that are in Algebra 2 or have already taken it, you're looking at, this is a quadratic trinomial. Okay, and the smoking gun is the x squared. Okay, anytime you see x squared, you've got yourself a quadratic. All right, and you'll see more of that later on as we do this. Now, when it says which expression is a factor, we're looking to see which of those four choices represents a factor of the 2x squared plus 38x plus 10. The number one rule of factoring, guys, is 3 letters, and that's GCF, okay? Greatest common factor. You don't do anything else. You don't need to find factors of C that add up to B, anything like that, until you first look for a GCF. So when I'm looking at this, I'm looking to see, do the 2x squared, the 38x, and the 10 have anything in common? And the fact that they're all even, okay? We all know that every even number is divisible by 2. So I know that I can pull a 2 out. So I like A, okay? Now, can I pull an X out? Well, for me to pull an X out, I know the 2x squared has an X. In fact, it has 2 of them. The 38 has an X, but the 10 does not have an X. So it would not be right for me to say that I can take an X out of everybody. So can't do that. That trinomial in the parentheses, once you take that out, 5x isn't going to work, 38x isn't going to work, 2x squared is not going to work. Again, D looks enticing because it has the 2, but at the end of the day, the other terms don't have an X. All the terms have to have that same variable in common. So definitely I'm going to go with choice A for that answer. 11. A ball is dropped from an initial height of 22 feet and bounces off the ground repeatedly. Okay, so we can think about that right now. You have, you're 22 feet above ground and you're throwing a ball and it's just going to hit the ground and kind of do something like this, right? All right, totally realistic, right? The function h estimates the maximum height reached after each time the ball hits the ground is 85% of the maximum height reached after the previous time the ball hit the ground. So already that's a mouthful, okay? So if you're reading this, you're trying to fight yourself from zoning out, all right? Because you can see it's a paragraph, it's got a lot of sentences, but we want to take from that already a couple things. Number one, the initial height of 22 feet, okay? So we start at 22 feet. The other important piece of information is that every time the ball bounces, it reaches a height that is 85% of its previous height, okay? Which equation defines h where h of n is the estimated maximum height of the ball after it has hit the ground n times, and n is a whole number greater than 1 and less than 10, okay? So the very first thing I want to talk to you guys about is that this is an exponential function. And an exponential function looks like this, okay? Now, let's talk a little bit about what an exponential function is basically made up of. So the first thing is that your a value will represent your initial value, but it's also going to represent the y-intercept, okay? So in this case, if I'm starting at 22, my y-intercept's at 0.22. Well, guess what? That also represents my a value. So I'm already into this, guys, for f of x equals 22 and then b to the x, or in this case, I might as well go with n, Okay. Now that's going to knock out C and D. Those don't even hold a candle to this. Okay. So we look at now A and B. Now the B part is going to be my growth or decay. Now if B is greater than 1, we have growth. So that would be like the height would be growing. That's not happening here. The ball is losing its height every single time, so it's decaying, right? It's losing height. So if B is between 0 and 1, that is decay. So if I look at my choices, well, both of them are between 0 and 1. Choice A has 0.22, choice B has 0.85. We just have to go with B on the fact that basically every single time we're losing, every time it's bouncing, it's going to be 85% of the previous time, okay? So choice B is going to be my answer. Now, to check this using Desmos, this could be something that I could bring Desmos in. If I were to just kind of say to myself, you know, let's go and look at what a table would look like with that function. If I were to say f of x equals 22.85 shift 6 raised to the x, I have a graph, which is great. But more importantly, if I hit the gear wheel and then hit table, this will give me some values I can play around with. So I know that when I release it, I'm 22 feet, you know, on some suspended surface. And then every time it bounces, it loses 85%. So what we could do is we can say 85% of 22, and we get 18.7, which is exactly what I get here. If I wanted further confirmation, what I could do is 85% of 18.7, and you get 15.895. So this further validates it. This confirms it for me. So I'm really, really happy about that. And I'm going to go with choice B. Question 12. The function f is defined by f of x equals 5x plus 8. For what value of x does f of x equals 58? So this is our first legitimate function question. What is a function, guys? A function is, just think of it as a box. And it's a machine or a box that welcomes any input, and that input is x, and it spits out an output, and that output is y. Always remember I comes before O, right? So x comes before y. That's an easy way to remember it. So when I have, you know, if I said f of 4, just for example, I would do, you know, f of 4 in the box, and this would be f of 5 times 4 plus 8, and it would spit out a 28, okay? So this question does not provide us with an input to do that. That's what most of them do, or at least what most people are comfortable with doing. This one kind of pulls a fast one on you if you're not paying attention, and it gives us an output, and it wants to know what is the input that gives me that output of 58. So visually, I'm looking at this, and I want to know what is my x value. So it's pretty easy. A couple ways to do it. Algebraically, what we can do is we can say that 58 is going to be y, and we can just simply do 5x plus 8. We can move this over, of course, and get x is equal to 10, and that's my input, so choice A. Let me show you something really cool on Desmos. What we could do on Desmos is type in the function. So f parentheses x close parentheses equals, we're going to go with 5x plus 8. And then let's use that regression. Let's bring back that tilde. We're going to do this time, though, guys, we're going to say 58 tilde f of x 1. Okay, remember, whenever we use regression, it's got to be any variable besides x or y, or you can do subscripts. So doing that, by typing that command, I'm asking Desmos to tell me what is my input. I'm forcing it to say my output's 58. What is that input? What is the input that gives me that output of 58? And as we can see, it gives me 10. So again, I can confirm it with that. It's like you're checking your answer, right? So I'm very confident with that answer. A is our answer. Question number 13. A rectangle has an area of 63 square meters and a length of 9 meters. What is the width in meters of the rectangle? All right, so this is just a simple geometry formula problem. We know that the area of a rectangle is equal to length times width. In this problem, we're given that the area is 63 square meters, so we're going to put 63 in place of area. We know the length is 9. So we're looking at finding out what W is. Pretty simple here, divide both sides by 9, and W will equal 7. So I'm going to go with 7 for my answer. Question number 14. The solution of the given system of equations is x comma y. What is the value of y? So at this point, I would hope that everybody has learned that systems of equations are best solved using Desmos. There are two ways to do it on Desmos. You could enter both equations and look for a visual, a graph to see where the lines intersect and then find that clickable point. We can also use regression, which I'll show you that as well. But I think for this one, if you actually look, this one isn't too bad in terms of kind of getting one of the answers right off the bat. If we look at the system here, I know that the first equation looks very intimidating with the x squared, but the second equation is x plus 8 equals 11. Bottom line, it gives us, you know, a very simple one-step equation to get x by itself, which would mean that it's 3. So at this point, you know, if you get x, which is not who we want, it wants y, you always want to read, you know, and make sure you know who you're looking for. But at this point, what we can do is we can say 3 to the second, tab, plus 14 times 3, plus 48. There's our answer, 99, okay? Let's go with the other approach, which would be the typing in the graph, the equation, and looking for the graph here. So x squared plus 14x plus 48, and then we're going to go with simple x plus 8 equals 11. And you know, this one is a little annoying because if we have to, you know, we have to scroll out, and you're looking to see where does it intersect, which right here, the clickable point. Once you click on a point and then it turns black, that means it's clickable. That means there's no doubt about it. So this one, you get an answer of 99. Okay. What I want to show you guys as well is the way to do it on Desmos using a regression is we want to make 2 lists. We want to have a list with certain elements. And what we want to do here is I want to put my upper left, comma, bottom left, and then I want to close the bracket, put a tilde, and then I'm going to put upper right, comma, bottom right. And what that's doing is that's saying that, you know, y followed by the x plus 8, that side is going to be equal to the x squared plus 14x plus 48, and then the 11, okay? Now, the one thing you have to remember with the regression is you cannot use x's and y's. So for all of these, you would have to put in your x1, your y1. Now, if you forget to do it, and there's a really quick way to do this, I always start this off by doing open bracket, close bracket, then tilde, same thing. Now, if we go ahead and we do y1, or let's say we do y comma, then x plus 8, you're going to see a caution sign here that says cannot regress a list of numbers against an empty list. That's kind of not the issue. I'll actually finish this and I'll show you that it's more than just the empty list. You will see a nice warning saying that you cannot use y as a regression parameter. So again, that's just you hopefully understand that, again, you cannot use y or x. So what we're going to do here is we'll just go back and we will ensure that we have y1, x1, x1 squared, and then 14x. And there you have it again, y is equal to 99. That's the beauty of regression. And the more you practice it, guys, it's all about reps, reps, reps. You get it much quicker than. Question number 15. The given equation 6r equals 7s plus t relates to variables r, s, and t. Which equation correctly expresses s in terms of r and t? What I'm going to do here is I'm going to at least, even if I have no idea what's going on here, guys, my answers all have one thing in common. They all have s to start off. So even if I had no idea what to do or what type of question this was, I would at least know that I need to get s by itself. All right, this is called a literal equation. We want s to be by itself. So by hand, what we want to do is, the rule of thumb is kind of PEMDAS backwards. So you want to eliminate, you know, subtraction, addition first, multiplication, division, working your way backwards. The other way I like to teach is basically this. If s is who we're looking for, I circle s so that I know I'm focused on it. That's what I want to get by itself. I need to move what's furthest away from that first. So who's farther away from the s, the 7 or the t? You would say t. We want to move it, which means we want to make it 0. So move it to the other side. We get 6r minus t equals 7s. I'm going to divide by 7, and you're going to see right there that that answer is going to be D. How do I do this using Desmos? Let's try regression on this. So let's say that we have, let's try regression. Let's do 6r tilde 7s plus t, okay? Now, let's say that we set s equal to 3 and t equal to 4, okay? That gives me an r value of 4.16 repeating. So if I were to do it this way, okay, what I would want to do now is, again, let's test our choices, but we think D's the answer. I'm going to type in just the 6r minus t part, and I want to make sure it's in parentheses, and we're going to put it over 7. And what do I get? I get an s value of 3, and that is what I picked for my slider. Now, if I move the slider up to 5.8, guess what? My r changes. But when I still have my choice D there, look at what it gives me for S, which is exactly what I have set for the slider. So that is confirmation here, guys, using Desmos, that the answer is definitely D. Question number 16. The ratio x to y is equivalent to the ratio 12 to t. When x equals 156, what is the value of y in terms of t? So here we have our ratio stating of x to y, and we have it equivalent to 12 over t. All right, when x is equal to 156, what's the value of y in terms of t? So another one of these in terms of t that really kind of just, you read that and for some kids, they just get confused. They have no idea what that means. You basically want to get y by itself here again. It doesn't have y equals in the answer choices like the previous problem, but it says what is the value of y in terms of t. So all of my answers have t's in them, and it's basically what y would be equal to. So we want to get y by itself. This is a little bit trickier, guys. So what I recommend for this one is let's do the reciprocal of the left, and that's going to equal the reciprocal of the right. And is that something that you can do in math? Absolutely, if it's just one fraction equal to another fraction. So for example, just to, 4 over 2 is equal to 8 over 4, okay? These are equal ratios, right? 4 over 2 is 2, 8 over 4 is 2. If I flip these around, these should be true. Are they? Yes, 1/2 is equal to 1/2. So if I do this, now I can say to myself, all right, let me get rid of the x. If it's y divided by x, I'm going to times it by x. What I do to one side, I do to the other. And I now have y is equal to xt over 12. Well, remember when it said x is equal to 156? So we're going to say y is equal to 156t over 12. I'm going to see if that is something that is can be reduced. So let's go with 156 over 12. You can see the answer is 13. So I'm going to confidently pick 13t, and that is answer A. Question number 17, student-produced response. A model predicts that a certain animal weighed 241 pounds when it was born and that the animal gained 3 pounds per day in its first year of life. This model is defined by an equation in the form of f of x equals a plus bx, where f of x is the predicted weight in pounds of the animal x days after it was born, and a and b are constants being meaning numbers. What is the value of a? So if you look at this function is a linear function. Now, it doesn't say that we're linear. Typically, the PSAT or SAT will state that. The fact that it doesn't say that makes me think, but clearly we know that that's a linear function. The only thing is it's not in its customary mx plus b, with the mx being first. Is that okay? Yes, it is. Of course it is. F of x equals 2x plus 3 is the same thing as 3 plus 2x. They are the same exact linear function. You just have to understand that the slope, which is our rate of change, is going to be the value with the x. The number on its own is our initial value, which is our y-intercept. So if I'm looking for a, which in this case is my initial value, I'm going to go right here with my initial value of 241. So it's going to be 241 for my answer for number 17. Question number 18. Geometry question. In the figure, line Q is parallel to line R. Both lines are intersected by line S. S is what we call the transversal. When a transversal cuts two parallel lines, it makes 8 angles. If y is equal to 2x plus 8, what's the value of x? All right, just a couple things that you probably have to remember. 58 and this angle right here are what we call corresponding angles. I know it says not drawn to scale, but we can see that this guy right here, this angle, is definitely the same as that. Okay, so that's a corresponding angle, that's 58. You could say that this is 58, that would be a vertical angle of that, and then you can say that these two angles right here are what we call same side interior. If you do it this way, guys, you just have to remember that same side interior are supplementary, okay? So in other words, you would have to add y and 58 instead equal to 180. Here, it looks like the same thing. Doing it this way is gonna actually end up being the same exact equation. If y is 2x plus 8, then I'm gonna say 2x plus 8 plus the 58 forms a linear pair, or two supplementary angles. So I'm gonna have 2x plus 8 plus 58 equals 180. We're gonna combine like terms on both sides if we can. This will give me 66. I'm gonna move over my 66 to get 114, and I'm gonna get an answer of 57 for my value of x. I will just type that in, and that's my answer. Question number 19. A number x is at most 17 less than 5 times the value of y. If the value of y is 3, what's the greatest possible value of x? So at most, the moment I see something like at most, at least, I'm probably thinking of inequalities, okay? So with inequalities, it's always a good idea to maybe involve Desmos. So I'm going to clear my expression list, and I'm going to try my best to write this expression out and see what I can come up with here. So a number x is at most. So at most is going to go this way. 17 less than. So that's another tricky phrase there, the less than. That wouldn't be 17 minus less than or subtracted from, go at the end. So 5 times the value of y and then minus 17. So if the value of y is 3, what's the greatest possible value of x? So if I just insert now 3 for y, I get 5 times 3 minus 17, and I'm just going to clean this up, and I'm going to get 15 minus 17, which we all know is negative 2. So the answer is x is less than or equal to negative 2. Okay, I feel pretty good about that. If I were to then go to Desmos, and I now want to type in x, shift less than, and then equals, and I do 5 times 3 minus 17, I can see as well here that the greatest possible value of x, it's a solid line, is negative 2. So I can do that. If I want it, if I did not type the 3 in, does it still work? The answer is yes. I would do this, and then I would have to do y is equal to 3. And let me get rid of the first one, and you would look at the intersection of those two lines, which of course will also give us an answer of negative 2. So I can confidently say that negative 2 is my answer. Question number 20. Another system here. The solution to the given system of equations x, y, what's the value of 2x? So let's just try the regression way that I showed you guys a couple questions ago. So we're going to go with 2 brackets with a tilde. And my first one is going to be, I'm going to put the upper left. I'm going to go x1 plus 3, comma, and then I'm going to go bottom left, x1 minus 3. And then I'm going to go over here and I'm going to put negative 2 y1 plus 5, comma, and then 2y1 plus 7. And look at that, it immediately gives me x1 and y1, so I know that the solution is 6, negative 2. Read the question carefully. It says, what's the value of 2x? So all I need to do now is, because x1 is stored in Desmos, I'm going to hit 2x1, and my answer is 12. So I'm going to pick C. I'm pretty confident about that, and on to the next one. 21. The function f is defined by the given equation. For what value of x does f of x reach its minimum? So this again is an algebra 2 question. This is a quadratic function that is in vertex form. So vertex form, which is not terribly difficult to comprehend, vertex form is f of x equals x minus h squared plus k, where hk is my vertex, okay? H being the x coordinate and k being the y coordinate. And students like this form compared to standard form because your vertex is, again, like slope-intercept form, the vertex is handed over to us. All right, we know that our vertex is contained within that form. Now, here's the tricky part. You got to be careful here because the vertex form is x minus h squared. Now, when I see x plus 7, what I need to realize is that behind the scenes, this is x minus negative 7. When I have a double negative, I have a positive. So in reality, my h is negative 7. So I always tell students, h is always going to be the opposite of what you think. So if you see 7 and you're thinking 7, it's the opposite. So it's going to be negative 7. The good news is k is what you see. So if I see 4, then that is going to be my k value. Now, a little bit more about this vertex. Not only is the h the x coordinate, it's also going to be the equation for my axis of symmetry, which I don't need here, but just want to explain that. And the y coordinate always represents the max or the min. Now, you heard that we need a minimum. Okay, now why is this a minimum? The last thing I'll show you is, or talk to you about, is that this is an a value, okay? So this a value right here is a 1, okay? The constant is 1, it's not written there. So if a is greater than 0, it's positive. What do positive people do? They smile. So anytime you have an a value that is positive, always think of smiling and always think of it going like that. If a is less than 0, it is a frown, because negative people frown, right? When you have a smile, you have a minimum. When you have a frown, you have a maximum. So in this case, this y coordinate of my minimum is going to be the answer that I need right here, which is going to be 4. So my answer is going to be 4 right here, okay? Now, if you have the time and you wanted to graph it, you can say f of x is equal to parentheses x plus 7, close parentheses, shift 6, 2, tab, plus 4. You can see that I have a parabola. We don't really care so much about that. We just care about this point right here. This is my minimum value. It is, again, the y coordinate of that ordered pair. So that is your answer 4. 22. In the given function f, a is a constant. The graph of function f in the xy plane where y equals f of x is translated down 3 units and 4 units to the right to produce the graph of y equals g of x. Which equation defines function g? So they give you something here where they give you an a, and that's kind of designed to throw you off. But most importantly, the x value underneath here is where we're going to apply our horizontal transformation here. So similar to the HK that we just talked about, horizontal transformations are the opposite of what we think. So if we think we're going to the right, we think of the positive x-axis. So we think of adding things. It's actually the opposite. So if you're moving to the right, you're going to be subtracting. If you're moving to the left, you're adding. Okay? Again, the vertical transformation is kind of like what you would expect. So if you're going up, you're adding. If you're going down, you're minusing. So here, if I'm going 4 units to the right, then this guy down here has to be x minus 4. Okay? That's going to represent, again, my horizontal transformation. Now, if I'm going down 3, then I just want to apply this minus 3 here to the end. So if I clean this up, I get f of x is equal to a minus 19 over x minus 4 plus 2. Do I see that for an answer? I do. It's B. So I'm probably at this point pretty happy that I think I have the right answer. Now, if I wanted to double check this, what I could do is this. I could go and type in my original function. So f of x equals, let's go parentheses a minus 19, close parentheses, over x, tab plus 5. Okay? Add a slider, sure. We'll make a3. Okay? Now, if I wanted to double check my answer here, and I type in g of x equals parentheses a minus 19, close parentheses, over x minus 4, tab plus 2, we need to just basically look at this green function and see what did it do in regards to the red. So did that green drop down, first of all, 3 units? It sure did. Okay? Did it go to the right or did it go to the left? You can see that the green moved to the right of the red function. So that would be further confirmation where I would be content with my answer. Just for humor's sake, if I did choice A, you're going to see that, and let me just hide the green one. With regards to my original function, the red one, it does drop, but it went to the left, and we need to go to the right. So that is definitely my answer, choice B. And that will conclude module number 1. Okay, question 1 on module 2. A cleaning service that cleans both offices and homes can clean at most 14 places per day. There's that at most expression we heard. Which inequality represents a situation where F is the number of offices and H is the number of homes. So at most 14, okay? So we need basically the number of offices and the number of homes to be less than or equal to 14. So offices F, what's homes H? F plus H is less than or equal to 14. That's going to be choice A. Moving along to question 2. In the given equation, K is a constant. The equation has infinitely many solutions. What is the value of K? Infinitely many solutions, guys. When we're solving an equation, one variable, infinitely many solutions is always the result of the equation on the left being equal to the equation on the right. So K has to be 21. And the reason why this works is if we were to have the 3x plus 21 equals 3x plus 21, regardless of which 3x you remove, you're left with 21 equals 21, which is all reals. Okay. Question number 3, the y-intercept of the graph, 12x plus 2y equals 18, and the xy plane is 0y. What is the value of y? So standard form, this is a standard form linear equation, cannot be typed directly into Desmos. So what we can do here is we would need to just make this go from ax plus by equals c into y equals mx plus b. And we're going to move this by, kind of something like what we did in the first module where we tried to isolate a variable. We want y by itself, move what's furthest away. So get this guy over here. We're going to do that by minusing it over. We get 2y equals negative 12x plus 18. Divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2. And we get y is equal to negative 6x plus 9. I'm looking for the y-intercept, so 9 is going to be my answer. I will put that in And that is the solution to that one. Question number 4. The graph shows the height above ground in meters of a ball x seconds after the ball was launched upward from a platform. Which statement is the best interpretation of the marked point 1, 4.8? So without looking at my answers, guys, this is just about interpreting the graph. On my x-axis, I have time. On my y-axis, I have height above ground. So what this is telling me is that after 1 second, the height of the ball above the ground is at 4.8. So I'm looking for something along the lines of saying, after a second, the height is 4.8. So choice A says 1 second after being launched, the ball's height above ground is 4.8. That sounds like it's the answer. So I'm going to go with A. I don't think there's any question about that. Next, question 5. Based on a random sample from a population, a researcher estimated that the mean value of a certain variable for the population is 20.5 with an associated margin of error of 1. Which of the following is the most appropriate conclusion? Very simply put, margin of error is wiggle room. All right. So if we have a average of 20.5 with an associated margin of error of 1, that means that our population is 20.5 plus or minus 1. Okay. So what that means is if we take away 1 and add 1, we create ourselves a little interval that our average lies somewhere between 19.5 and 21.5. So now we just look at these answer choices and we want to see which one makes sense. So choice A says it is plausible that the actual mean value for the variable of the population is between 19.5 and 21.5. That sounds like a correct answer. It's plausible, so that means it's possible. It would be a good idea to assume that the actual mean value of the variable for the population is between 19.5 to 21.5. That's the range that we got, plus or minus 1. I'm going to go with that. Choice A is my answer. Question 6, the table shows the frequency of values in a data set. What is the minimum value of the data set? They like to put this on here in the early questions because it really is easy, but they try to get you on thinking that the minimum value is 21 because the frequency is 1. But that's not what they're testing you on. They want to know what's the smallest value. So in this data set, we have 7 19s, we have 121, 7 23s, and 4 25s. So I'm not going to write them out. There's no reason to. But of all the numbers I listed, 19 is the lowest. And that's what they're looking for. Nothing more than that. So 19 is my answer. Question 7. The given equation relates the positive numbers m, n, and p. Which equation correctly gives n in terms of m plus p? So what did we do in the other module? We knew that everything needed to be in terms of n. So I'm going to try to do this by hand by getting n by itself. So I want to get rid of the p, but I have it in parentheses and then the 5. And I told you before, we want to go PEMDAS in reverse. So we don't want to do parentheses first. We want to go like subtraction or addition and then make our way to like, multiplication division. So if I see that this 5 times the n plus p, if I can move that, I will. So I'm going to divide both sides by 5. I'm going to get 7m over 5 equals n plus p. And then I should just be able to move over that p. And I'm going to get n is equal to 7m over 5 minus p. That should be answer B for my choice. Okay? Now, with Desmos, again, if we were to do regression, we tried that. I didn't see that to be. We could do a slider now of n and make it 2, and we can make p equal to 3. And we can see that m becomes 3.57. So what we could do is we can test our choice B and see if once we type in the 7m over 5 minus p, that gives me an answer of 2 for n, which is exactly what my slider is. So that confirms that our answer is in fact B using Desmos regression. Question number 8 for the linear function f. Keyword is linear. Which table gives 3 values of x and their corresponding values of f of x? So, this is a linear, but it's actually more specifically called a constant function. This is, if I were to graph it, so I'll show you. If I were to graph f of x equals 39, guys, this is a straight horizontal line going across 39 on the y-axis, okay? So if I go to my cogwheel and I just hit table, you can see that every single x value is 39. It is a constant function again. I have that in B. So I'm going to go with B being my answer, and that's it. Fine, a rectangle has a length that is 15 times its width. The function y equals 15w times w represents a situation where y is the area in square feet of the rectangle and y is greater than 0, meaning the area has to be positive. Which of the following is the best interpretation of 15w in this context? So the length is 15 times the width, all right? So I think what we want to do here is we have to understand that this sentence right here, a rectangle has a length that is 15 times the width. My width is W. All right, so if my width is W, my length is going to be 15 times that. So that's going to be 15W. So when you have that equation that is up there in the problem, this is definitely my width. Because we know that the length is 15 times the width, this represents the length. And as we know, area is equal to length times width. So I'm going to look for 15W. I'm going to look for that interpretation to be the length. So that looks like it is choice A. So I'm going to go with that for my answer. Question 10. The table gives the number of hours, H, of labor and a plumber's total charge, F of H, in dollars for two different jobs. There is a linear relationship between H and F of H. Which equation represents this relationship? We have two things that we love about this. Number one, we have the word linear. Okay, so we know this is mx plus b. We know the equation is going to have a line if we graph it. But more important, we have a table. And when we have a table and the word linear, we're going to go with linear regression in Desmos every single time. So we're going to go with, again, I typed the word table. We're going to go with 1, tab 155, tab 3, tab 285. And then again, I did these dots before for automatic. If you want to do custom regression, you can write it as such. So you can go with what you see the form that's supposed to be in, which is mx plus b. So you can see that m is 65 and b is 90. So my equation would be y is equal to 65x plus 90. And again, if you had to hit that, you get that here anyway. So choice C is my answer. Which expression represents the result of increasing a positive quantity W by 43%? When you increase a percent, okay, you're adding that to 100. When you decrease a percent, you subtract it from 100. It's as simple as that. So if I am increasing something by 43%, okay, then I'm working with 140% of that amount, that positive quantity, which in this case is W. I don't see 143% for any of my choices, but they're also the decimal equivalents of this. So if I have 143%, then I know that as a decimal, it's going to go once, twice, 1.43. So 1.43 is going to be that increase of 43%, which again is really now 143% of its value. So we're going to go with 1.43W for my answer for 11. Question number 12. The shaded region shown represents the solutions to which inequality? Going back to what we said in module 1 with Mr. Slope Guy, I have a line going down from left to right. So if I look at my slope, and it's not an mx plus b, but more so b plus mx, I'm going to look at those 4s and negative 4s. I'm going to cross out choice A and choice C because I do not have a positive slope here. Now, I have a y-intercept of 1, which isn't going to help me for B or D. So I think for at this point right here, if I want to, I can just kind of throw this into Desmos and see. So that's choice B. That does not look like what I have on the screen. So I'm going to go with that, and that confirms that my answer is indeed D. Question 13. What is the positive solution to the given equation 5x squared minus 37x minus 24 equals 0? So I want to show you again how to do this using regression. We're going to go with 5x1 shift 6 squared minus 37x1 minus 24. We're not going to use equals, but we're going to use tilde 0. Now, this is something that needs to be discussed here. When you have regression and there's two solutions, it's going to give you the closest solution to 0. It's not going to give you both solutions, okay? Because in this case, we have two solutions. It's going to give you the closest solution to 0. Positive or negative. So in this case, one of my solutions is negative 0.6, which means that my positive solution is further away from 0. Now, how do I make sure that how do I get that positive solution? What we want to do is after that 0, I want you to type in brace x1 greater than 0. Close brace. And now we can see that it gives you the positive solution, which is 8. Can I graph this? Absolutely you can. It's about being efficient and quick in this. You can see that here I have my parabola and I have a negative solution, which I don't want. So I would have to go find this one, click on it, and I get 8. So you can get it like that. Question number 14. One side of a flat board has an area of 874 square inches. If a pressure of 19 pounds per square inch of area is exerted on this side of the board, what is the total force in pounds exerted on the side of the board? I think for this one, this is going to be, you're looking at force is going to be equal to the area multiplied by the pressure. I don't think there's anything more to this problem. So this is going to be 874 times 19 pounds per square inch. So this, I'll just go to Desmos and type that in and get my answer. So 874 times 19, that's going to be 16,606 for a final answer. Question number 15. One of the two equations in the system of linear equations is given. The system has infinitely many solutions. Which of the following could be the second equation in the system? Okay. A couple ways you can do this. All right. You can type the first equation in. You could type the second equation in from any of your four choices, and you can look to see if you have the same line on top of one another. Maybe that's the best option for you. You can do the regression that I showed you earlier, where we can do like, you'd have to get your two equations and then have an upper left, a bottom left, an upper right, a bottom right. The other thing you can do is the matching rule. So one of the things that I love to do with systems is talk about the matching rule. And it's something that you can easily commit to memory, in my opinion. So solutions to a system. There are three types of solutions to a system. You have crisscross, one solution. All right. You have parallel lines, no solution. And you have one line on top of the next, that's infinite solutions. Okay? As long as your equations are in standard form. So standard form would be, ax plus by equals c, and then the second one would be dx plus ey equals f. If a over b, or a over d is not equal to b over e, then you're going to have one solution guaranteed. Guaranteed. For no solution, if the ratio of a to d is equal to the ratio of b to e, but the last ratio of c to f is not the same, it's not going to be a solution. You would have parallel lines. And finally, the ratios here of a to d to b to e to c to f, if these were all the same, then you would have infinite solutions. So what you could do here is, let's say you have negative 15x plus 25y equals 65, okay? So if I were to just take the first example and say 12x plus 20y equals 52, look at my ratio of a to d. It's negative. This is positive. Does everybody see that? That's b over e is positive. That's positive. So not going to happen because this would be, the ratios would not be consistent. How about the next one? You have negative 15 over 12, 25 over 20. Again, not going to happen, okay? So now it comes down to the bottom two. So let's look at now 15x plus 25y equals 65, and then you have negative 12x plus 20y equals 52. Well, we have negative 15 over 12, negative 12, which reduces to 5 over 4. This reduces to 5 over 4, and 65 over 52 is not a ratio that we're the most confident with, but you can see that it actually gives you 1.25. So the 15 over 12, 1.25. The 25 over 20, 1.25. The 65 over 52, 1.25. They all have the same ratio, so that would definitely mean that C is my answer. Question number 16. A bus traveled on the highway and on local roads to complete a trip of 160 miles. The trip took 4 hours. The bus traveled at an average speed of 55 miles per hour on the highway and an average speed of 25 miles per hour on local roads. If X is the time in hours the bus traveled on the highway and Y is the time in hours it traveled on local roads, which system of equations represents this situation? Okay, so X is the time in hours the bus traveled on the highway. So I want to find out what information refers to the highway. So that's going to be the 55 miles per hour. So I like 55X. I'm going to go with 25 miles per hour on local roads. Local roads is Y. So I'm going to go with 25Y on that. Together, okay, that would make up the total trip that we traveled. Because I don't know the number of hours that I travel on the highway, but what I do know is that for every mile, 55 miles per that, for that rate, that in addition to the 25Y will give me my 160. And then the number of hours I spent on the highway plus the number of hours I spent on the local roads together gives me 4. That is going to be option B in this case. Question number 17. The graph shows the momentum y in Newton seconds of an object x seconds after the object started moving, for x being between 0 and 8. What is the average rate of change in Newton seconds per second in the momentum of the object from x equals 2 to x equals 6? So again, a very wordy problem. This is not a line, but it's talking about rate of change. And when we think of rate of change, we're thinking of slope, we're thinking of lines. So we're looking at basically what is that rate of change, from those 2 points that I just kind of cut with a red line there. I think here what we want to do is come up with our 2 points and run a linear regression to see what we're talking about here. So I'm going to go to my Desmos. Again, is that an easy one you could do manually? Sure. If you know your slope formula off the top of your head. So 2, 6, 6, 8. Just hit these buttons, and I'm going to go with 1/2. All right, my slope is 1/2. And what that's saying is, you're for every increase in a second, the momentum is going up by 1/2 of Newton seconds. All right, so Newton seconds per second. For every 1 second that we increase, we're going up by 1/2 of a Newton second. So that will be my answer. I'm going to put 0.5. Question 18, quadrilateral P prime, Q prime, R prime, S prime. All those apostrophes are to symbolize that something happened to the original PQRS. It got moved to the left, the right, up, down, dilated, shrunk, whatever. Where PQR and S correspond to those respectively. The measure of angle P is 30, the measure of angle Q is 50, and the measure of angle R is 70. The length of each side of the transformed polygon is 3 times the length of each of the corresponding sides of PQRS. What's the measure of angle P? So a classic PSAT problem, SAT problem even at that. Similarity, similar polygons in this case, same shape, different size. These are not congruent polygons. They're not going to be carbon copies. These are going to be, again, like if you were to enlarge a photograph, okay? You're keeping the same shape, but it's a different size. So it doesn't matter how you draw it. These don't come with visuals. So you're going to make one yourself. And you're looking at the length of this P prime QRS is 3 times. So you're looking at basically a dilation, okay? It got enlarged by a scale factor of 3, okay? Now, it says P is 30 and Q is 50 and R is 70, and it wants to know what is the measure of angle P prime. Here's the wonderful thing about similarity. With similar polygons, whatever, triangles, quadrilaterals in this case, all corresponding angles are congruent. The sides are proportional. This question is not asking about sides. This question is asking about angles. So if this angle's 30, guess what? So is that. That's it. So this answer is going to be B, 30 degrees. They probably gave you D to think of like, tripling the 30 because of the scale factor. They probably gave you 10 because that would be dividing it by 3 in case you got kind of mixed up. But 30 is definitely your answer. Question number 19. The given function f represents the perimeter in centimeters of a rectangle with a length of x centimeters and a fixed width. What is the width in centimeters of the rectangle? Okay, so again, our function represents the perimeter in centimeters of a rectangle with the length of x and a fixed width. So what do we know about perimeter? We know that perimeter is of a rectangle. We've got width, width, length, length. Perimeter is equal to 2L plus 2W. Okay? Well, in this case, X stands for L. X represents the length. So if I have my function of 2X plus 244, then I know that this X, which is my length, matches up perfectly with that. So it's saying that, hey, 2 times the length is going to give me part of my perimeter. The other part of the perimeter comes from 2 times the width. Well, my 2 times the width is 244. So if I set 2W equal to 244, this will give me my width. Okay, now I know it says the word fixed. Again, nothing I think you need to worry about. I think, again, if you match the 244 up with the 2W, then you can, put this together and get the answer to be 122. Question 20. The function f is defined by the given equation. Let's take a look at that equation. F of x equals absolute value. Okay, it's the first time we've seen this in this test. Minus 2x. For which of the following values of k does f of k equal 3k? Okay, good question. Towards the end of the module, things are getting a little bit trickier, I guess. So this is a function, and it's giving me an input of k. So going back to our original, example from module 1, we have this box, this machine, and the input in this case is k, and it's spitting out a 3k. Okay, so let's see what we can do with Desmos here. I think this is something that we can probably use it to our advantage. So if we do f of x is equal to absolute values, that's going to be your vertical slash button there above the return, 2x, okay? And if I now go and I say that 3k expression symbol is f of k, it gives me a k value of 11.8. Okay, so what I typed in there is I said, hey Desmos, I want you to tell me what value of k will produce that output of 3k. And because I'm just working with k's here, it's referencing the function above, this f of x equals 15, absolute value 59 minus 2x, and it's giving me an answer of k equals 11.8. This RMSE is not 0, but with scientific notation, guys, that's as close as to 0. It's virtually 0. So that's a very good fit. So if I now go and hit k, I get 11.8. And then if I hit the fraction symbol, it gives me 59 over 5. Do I have that? Yes, I do. So that's going to be my answer right here. Question number 21. In triangle ABC, the measure of angle B is 90 degrees and BD is an altitude of the triangle. The length of AB is 15 and the length of AC is 23 greater than the length of AB. What is the value of BC over BD? All right, so you have a triangle. Again, no visual, so we're going to create our own triangle here. The right angle, so we can put A up here, C, and we're going to draw an altitude, BD. An altitude is a segment coming from any point that is perpendicular to the side across from it. So we're going to draw this, and what that does is it breaks up your original triangle into 3 similar triangles. All right, what are similar triangles again? All the angles, all the corresponding angles are congruent, and all your corresponding sides are proportional. So in this case, we know AB is 15, and we know that AC is 23 more than that, so it's going to be 38. Okay, so we need to figure out what ratio is going to kick in here to give us our answer. So we know that triangle ABC is similar to triangle BDC BAD. So when we're looking at what is the value of BC to BD, we're looking at BC over BD we're looking at any ratio of a leg to its hypotenuse in this context is going to be 15 over 38. Now in this case, because BC plays the role of the hypotenuse in this smaller triangle BDC, and D plays the role of the leg, then we're going to go with the hypotenuse over the leg, which in this case would be 38 over 15. So in this ratio that they're looking for, BC to BD, once again, BC, even though this is a leg, so when I say it's a leg, I'm looking at the big picture, the big triangle. But if you look at just this inside triangle right here, now this kind of plays, I'll use a different color, plays the role of the hypotenuse, and then this is a leg. And so is DC. So we are using the BC and BD in this text, relating it to the 15 and the 38. So in this case, this would be 38 over 15. Choice D is my answer. Question 22 in Module 2. In the given equation, A and B are positive constants. The sum of the solutions to the given equation is K times 4A plus B, where K is a constant. What's the value of K? So a couple things on this one. You have a quadratic equation, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, and there's a really, really good formula for you that you should try to commit to memory for the sum of the solutions of a quadratic. And the sum of solutions to a quadratic is equal to the opposite of b over a. This is a, of course, this is b, and this is c. So in this equation that was given to us, this is a, this whole thing is b, and this whole thing is c. So if my sum of solutions is the opposite of b over a, then I'm going to go with the opposite of negative, which is positive 16a plus 4b over my a value, which is 64, and that's equal to A times 4A plus B. Okay? Once I get to this point, I can see I have A's and B's. I go ahead now and I factor out, I want K by itself, so I want to get rid of this 4A plus B. If I were to do that, I kind of want to see what I can do here to relate it to this, and maybe I can cancel something out. So if I notice the 16A and the 4 have a greatest common factor of a 4. So if I pull that 4 out, I'm going to get 4A plus B over 64, and that's equal to K 4A plus B. Well, let's simplify the 4 over 64 to 1 over 16. And now I'm getting 4A plus B over 16 equals K times 4A plus B. If I now divide by 4A plus B on both sides, or you could also say 1 over 4A plus B, we're going to cancel those out, and my answer is going to be 1 over 16. Okay. So I'm going to now just type in 1 over 16. That is going to be my final answer of this module. Well, that concludes the video. I hope you learned something. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I wish you the best of luck whenever you take your PSAT. Till next time.